I want to take a couple minutes to try to clarify a few things. With each meeting we've had, there's been some questions raised in regard to Shadowwood Community Association, Shadowwood Country Club, neighborhood reps, CCNC, and then we've got the CDD, and we've got the Commons Club. But I've got to take a minute to give you a little bit of background on what each of those mean. Shadowwood Community Association has been in existence now under the managership of our own people for probably about 6 years or so. And basically the statutes in the state of Florida say that when a community is 90% sold out, it must become a community association run by the membership. So that's been in place for a long time. We have a separate board of directors. We also have neighborhood reps who basically represent everyone throughout Shadowwood. We're basically responsible in the Shadowwood Community Association for all the roadways, all the landscaping along those roadways, the common areas, the security, and those things that basically we've used to beautify the community. A landscape committee, which I'm the chair of, is the committee that's been basically assigned to look at the entrances as to is there a way that we can better improve them. So that's the Shadowwood Community Association. We also have the Shadowwood Country Club, which needless to say, you're in their facility right here, but they basically own the club, the golf courses, the tennis courts, and they too have a lot of landscaping responsibility, more in connection with the club or the golf courses, whereas the Shadowwood Community Association has more of the responsibility that is along the roadways, the main arteries. And then, of course, on top of that, we've got the Commons Club. You're familiar with that. That basically ownership there is Rosie's, the Enrichment Center, and the Fitness Center. Again, a separate organization with their own board of directors. And then we've got the CDD, which is the Community Development District, which was the way of raising funds prior to the start of the community to do the infrastructure necessary to build the brooks. We all pay for that in the ad valorem tax bill you get every year. There's a line at the bottom basically indicating your share of that. Now, one other confusion is the CCNC of the Country Club is the Country Club Neighborhood Committee is what that stands for, not North Carolina. They are the representatives who basically support and give feedback to the board of directors for the Country Club. And what we're showing today is recommendations only of the Landscape Committee. The recommendations are based on the considerations that the Landscape Committee thought was appropriate. That does not mean we're going to do it all. It does not mean that we're going to ram it through. And in addition to that, we have, I think, 3 options. One is do the whole thing, if that's chosen. The other would be to scale back, and the other would be to put it on the shelf for a time period. So the board of directors has made it very, very clear that we will not do this without broad community support. We are going to be having a board of directors meeting the 30th of this month, and at that time some discussions will be held on this subject. The opinion poll that you're all going to have the opportunity to fill out later today when we get to the Q&A session is input that we've gained from the people who have come to the meetings thus far. We also hope to gain some additional information from what we put on the web, and that information will be shared with the board at the 30th meeting. A lot has changed at Shadowwood over the years. In March of 1998, the road was paved to the railroad tracks. And at that time, the first residents of Shadowwood started moving into the community in the fall of '98. We had one sign at that time, the one that's existing today. That's the only one we really needed. Primarily because the only way you could get here was from 41. A little later, of course, Spring Run started about the same time. And then a little later, they opened up 3 Oaks Parkway to be able to take care of the Copperleaf people. A little later, it was opened up the whole way up to the Corkscrew Road. In about 1994 is when our gate on the back of the community was established, the 3 Oaks Gate. And it's interesting to note that since that time, Livingston, of course, has been opened up as a main thoroughfare north and south for Lee County. And that road today handles much more traffic than Coconut does. So where we started years ago to where we are today, needless to say, the roadways have changed rather considerably. On the entrance to the Shadowwood community, some of the numbers that we have on numbers of people who enter our gate is really sort of outstanding. In the month of March last year, and probably this year as well, we'll have about 66,000 cars come through Coconut, entering Coconut. We'll have about half of that many, 33,000, entering the Three Oaks entrance. So it's a busy community, and we've grown considerably since the place was originally started. We're going to have 3 presenters today, myself, and the other is going to be Scott Wyndham. Scott is the landscape architect who we've hired for the services of providing us his valuable input, and also Greg Lewis from the standpoint of real estate and what it can do for us. I will give you a little oversight of what we're going to be covering. Scott will do the drawings and the renderings. Dan Sater cannot be with us today. He's lives here in Shadowwood. He's a residential house designer, and primarily the upper scale homes. He's been involved in some 100 or so homes here in Shadowwood alone. But Dan is very well known internationally and nationally for his efforts, and he's been a big help to us. I'm going to give you a cost breakdown. I'll cover the committee recommendations, and again, I emphasize recommendations, not cast in stone. Talk about the funding considerations, the project timing considerations. Greg will come on the real estate value impact. Also talk a little bit about pride in the community. I'll give some closing comments, and then from there, we'll go into the question and answer session. Thanks to the landscape committee, Dan and also Scott, we got 23 people who have worked on this project relative to people who live here in the community. And they were very dedicated to the overall effort. And needless to say, they contributed a lot with their knowledge, their time, and their enthusiasm over the project. So I do appreciate that very much. Giving you a little bit of background in regard to where we've been. If you look at the March of 2009, a year ago, the committee recommended a study to improve the visibility of our community, to enhance the appearance and image of the community, improve the real estate values, and increase the pride of the residents, the visitors, and also prospective buyers. The board agreed to support the initial study. They gave us the caveat that you can do it, but don't spend any money. March through October, we did the internal study with those 23 people that I mentioned. And we visited several of the local clubs, took a lot of pictures. We reviewed a lot of the positives and negatives as we saw them at the local clubs. After that, we developed the considerations that we thought might be appropriate for Shadowwood. And from there, we went out with a request for qualifications. Now, what that means is we basically went to 9 different landscape architects and said to them, here's what we're considering. You tell us why you think you're the best person to do this job for us. And out of those 9, we pretty quickly narrowed it down to 3. Those 3 came in and made verbal presentations to us. We narrowed it down to 2. And the 2 that we chose at that time were the 2 that we sent a request for proposal. The request for proposal is where you go to the company saying, basically, here's what we want to do. What's it going to cost us to do it, and how are you going to do it? So out of that process, Wyndham Studio, which is a local Bonita firm, and Scott Wyndham, who's with us today, was the one we awarded a contract to do this initial study. And then, of course, the board at that point approved the money accordingly to do that. In January of this year, we updated the board and the neighborhood reps basically on what we had accomplished to date. At that time, we didn't have any numbers as far as the cost is concerned. Then on February 23rd, just a few weeks ago, is when we had the meeting with the board, showing them the finalized drawings and renderings, the breakdown of the cost estimates, our recommendations on not only the considerations but also the timing, and then we gave them the value-added comments.